first we were 120 girls. We were working in Berlin by Siemens. And people, by Siemens Schuckert in Berlin, they needed slave workers. We made airplane parts. And in 1941, the Gestapo in Frankfurt got 120 girls to work there. And we worked there for 2 years. We had a contract. And from the 120 girls, after the contract was finished, they all shipped us with a cattle car to Auschwitz. But we didn't think it would be a terrible thing. We go to a different camp, where we're going to work in a factory because we had experience already, because we worked for Siemens. So in 1943, the Gestapo collected all Jews in Berlin, and they collected us from the machine. The 2 years was finished to the day. They shipped us. We were 3 days in a hall laying, 120 girls. We were very cheerful. We figured, oh, we go to a different camp. In the meantime, they collected more Jews from Berlin, and they shipped us with a whole group of people from Berlin and from our factory, the people. And they shipped us to Auschwitz. We had no idea what Auschwitz meant. We had no idea. So we was very upset. We packed everything. We took all the clothes we had. Some people they took from the machines, and we worked in the night shift, so we had enough time to collect whatever we could take. So we came to the train that took us by bus to the train. And it wasn't a train, it was a cattle car. So they shipped us with all different people. There was hundreds of cattle cars already lined up. They put us in a cattle car. In my group was about 80. And the other shift came the next day. So my group, we came to Auschwitz. My sister, I had a sister, we worked together. So my sister and I, we were together all the time. So we came to Auschwitz. There was hundreds of cattle cars standing already with dogs and SS. And the prisoners of war already told us, go walk. Walk, walk, don't go under the car. So my sister was very tired. She says, I'm going on a bus. I said, no, you're not going on a bus. We all go together. So finally, we came into Auschwitz. We had no idea what it meant. Arbeit macht frei. So I was in Auschwitz, in Birkenau first. So we got into Auschwitz, and we got there, and we had our packages and clothes. They ripped everything out of our hand. And they went into a big room. They took our clothes off and gave us a shower. Then they came us in another room. They tattooed our arm with our number on. So the next day, they put us in a room where they gave us clothes. And the clothes was from prisoner of war, because in Auschwitz was first Russian prisoner who sent them back to Russia, and most of them were killed. So we had the clothes from the Russian prisoner. They put it on us. We had no idea how to put them on. So finally, they had prisoners who helped us to dress us up. Then came some other group who cut our hair. Our hair was cut off wherever they found hair. So in the meantime, we were standing there. Finally, we realized that what Auschwitz meant. We were hysterical. One girl looked in the mirror and she really collapsed. So finally came raus. So they put us in a block. And in the block, they had those coir, those beds. We had to lay on it with straw. And they gave us a blanket, a soup pot, and a coffee pot. So we were afraid they're going to steal it, so we tied it at our clothes. And we found some string from the floor, and we tied on the soup bottles and everything we carried with us in order to have it when it comes to the eating time. In the morning, they put us in a bunker. So at night, we couldn't sleep. So some girls, they used to say, it's itching, it's itching. They found some lice in our clothes. So we had to take off the clothes and look for lice. So in the meantime, the next day, we had to get up in the morning, 5 o'clock, and stand 3 hours on a roll call. And they counted us. So we just came to go to work. They selected us for working. So my friend and I, they gave us work to clean the electric wire. I forgot the name now. The electric wire. We had to clean the electric wire so the grass shouldn't grow up. So my friend Martha, she lives in Florida, we cleaned the grass, and that was right near the crematorium, where the Sonderkommando worked and spread out the ashes. So we witnessed that, and one guy sent us over dates. In the dates, we found a gold piece. So my friend told us, let's give it to the block Älteste. So we sold it for a piece of bread and a jar of jelly. So we shared it, so we had already extra food. So the next day came the Lagerkommandant and was looking for factory workers. So the people who survived, some of them from the factory from Siemens, we raised our hand. So we worked in a munition factory. It's called Union Weichsel, because in Auschwitz was a factory built from the Kruppwerke. The Kruppwerke was bombed out from the Russians. So this new factory opened up, so they needed 50 workers. So one of the 50 workers was a few girls from Berlin where we worked together. That was our lifesaver. So we worked in the factory, and they made munition for the army. So I worked 4 weeks on a machine. We made little parts for the bombs. So then one of the foremen said they needed some people who cleaned the office building. They called it Reinemacher Kommando. So I raised my hand right away. And they made me in charge with 7 girls to work in the office building, to clean the office where all the officers and foremen lived. So we had a chance to get out of camp. So they called this Commando 107 Reinemacher Kommando. So here I had a chance to steal newspapers, and we used to clean the office building. Some people left some bread, and some people left the newspaper. So I always managed to steal the bread and share it with my friends. So in the meantime, we worked there in Auschwitz. This was my lifesaver for about a year. And we worked in the munition factory. So in the meantime, we had a powder room. The powder room was where all the prisoners worked who make the bomb powder for the bombs. And there was 4 girls in the powder room, but I knew very well. One of Estusha, she was sleeping with me, with her sister, who I was in contact with the sister all year long. So in the meantime, Estusha used to talk to me and told me all the secrets, but he says, don't tell anybody. So I was very close with her. So that took on weeks and weeks. In 1944, in October, was an uprising in Auschwitz. They exploded the crematorium, and a lot of prisoners and SS, they were all killed. And they tortured the 4 girls who worked in the powder room. They wouldn't talk. It took months and months till they found out who smuggled out powder with the underground. In the underground was a lot of Jewish men who live in Israel, and they were underground people, and it was one of the 4 girls was Robota. Robota was in charge of the 4 girls. And then they would not talk. They tortured the girls for weeks in a bunker. We used to visit them and brought them bread, and they would not talk about it, how they smuggled the powder out. So they smuggled the powder out in the lining of the clothes, and they had some aprons. They put the powders in it. It was going on weeks and weeks. And finally, one of the girls, like Lydia, they spoke. She couldn't handle the torture. And that's how they found out how how the powder came out for the underground. So in the meantime, we had the people who worked in the munition factory, and we had to watch. They had 2 sessions. The first session, 2 girls and 2 for the night shift. So we had to watch hanging those girls. And Estusha, my friend, whose sister was alive, I was in contact with her all the time. She passed away, and I have all the notes. So finally, we all got together. Yad Vashem gave us the spot. It took 7 years before we got the spot in Yad Vashem. So finally, we got a spot in Yad Vashem. And we had to raise $33,000 for the architect from Sweden. And we raised the money. I even raised money through my temple with a lot of friends I had. So my husband saved all the receipts, and I got in touch with the girls in Israel who also raised the money. And finally, in 1991, my husband let me go to Israel when they put up the monument as a dedication. So I went there, and I even have pictures from it. And I went to the dedication when they put up the 4 monuments. And I lived in Israel in the garden, in the back in the garden. So whoever going to visit Israel should go and take a look at the 4 heroes who worked in the underground. And that's the story I had. And after the war, I kept in touch with the girls. And I could go on for hours about what we did in Auschwitz. In Auschwitz, if you marched out of Auschwitz to work, was already a palace. Whoever got out of Auschwitz was a very lucky person. I was special lucky because I worked in an office building where the army had their office, who was in charge of the powders, to distribute the powders to the army. And one of the officers left some safe. You see, in Auschwitz, when you have a disease on your skin, they have once a year a selection. Whoever has this disease goes right away in the chimney. So I told the officer, Mr. Hauptmann, his name was Zimmermann, that we can't come to go work tomorrow to clean the office. He says, tell me why. So I told him. He managed that my Commando 107 marched out of the camp. And we were saved. But that day, every couple months, they had selection. Whoever had the disease is a very catchy disease. So I stole a bottle of the safe, and we helped each other, and they never blackmailed us. And I think he left it purposely there. So I stole the safe. That's how we saved our skin, not to be selected to go into the chimney. And that's how you always had a chance, once you get out of the camp, to somehow organize yourself. Sometimes, when you march out, like the first 4 weeks I worked we built barracks. The first 4 weeks in Auschwitz, we built barracks, the foundation of the barracks. We used to carry the stones to build the barracks every Sundays when we didn't work in the factories. So that was my first job. But in the meantime, the Union factory saved my life. That's how I saved it. And end of the war, January 18, 1945, we went on the Dead March. The Russians came closer to Auschwitz. So in the meantime, we all got together, how we going to go out. There were thousands of people had to leave Auschwitz because they didn't want to give us into the Russians' hands. So we marched for 2 days by foot. Whoever survived, you saw more dead people on the floor and marching. So finally we got to one of the city, Oslo, I forgot the name. They put us on a kettle car, open kettle car, and we had no more water. They gave us a bread when we left, and some salami, but it was terrible. So it was like diamonds for us. So finally, we bought a kettle car, we had no more water, so we ate the snow. And the snow kept us the water. So finally we came, we arrived in Ravensbrück. And in Ravensbrück was another camp. So we got off, we were already like just exhausted. We didn't care where we went, we were just like animals. We just didn't care anymore. Finally, we arrived there, and I found my sister. My sister was with me in Birkenau 8 months, and I had a friend in the office who worked there. Her name was Sibylle Tischauer, and she managed that Ravensbrück needed some Siemens worker who worked in Berlin. So my sister raised her hand, and she was shipped there. So I found my sister in Ravensbrück. So we were there 2 weeks, but Ravensbrück had so many prisoners already. They had no room. We slept 2 weeks on the floor without mattress, just a blanket. So we were there in Ravensbrück about 2 weeks, and then again, that shipped us away to another camp, partly by foot and partly by car. So we marched up to Malschhof. Malschhof is a camp what Ravensbrück used to use as a family camp. So we wind up there for weeks and weeks, about 4 weeks, I think we lived there, 4.5 weeks. That was already in the beginning of April. In the meantime, we couldn't stand there anymore. So in the meantime, we were staying, 8 people, we were 8 people. We said, we're not going anymore. So he said to us, finally, we were hiding in a barn for a few weeks. A few weeks in the barn. I didn't speak Polish or Russian, so we were hiding in a German bar, about 8 people, and for 2 weeks. And then the Russians came, also close by. So I said, we're not going, we're staying here. So all of a sudden the Russians came, they wanted to attack us. So one of the guys who speaks Polish and Russian, they called their Russian officer over, and he told them, what should we do with those people? So the Russian officer happened to be a Jew who spoke Yiddish and Russian. He took care of us for 2 weeks. We stood in a German house. In a German house, the people moved out with everything. So the Russians brought us food, and they gave us clothes, and we stayed there till end of April. But I think it was middle of April. Then we said the Russians liberated the section, so we marched again. So in the meantime, I saw a truck of BMW from Belgium. They called their prisoner of war back. So I left my friends, and the friends didn't want me to go. So then I saw one guy on the truck. He was a stateless Jewish boy, but I knew him from Auschwitz. He stole a French uniform and he put it on, so he wanted to get into Belgium with a prisoner of war. So he called me up, Clara, come with me. My name used to be Clara. He said, come with me. I said, I can't leave my friends. So I made a decision. So I left my friends and I went on the truck with a prisoner of war from Belgium towards the English zone. So I came to the English zone in Celle. It's near Hanover. Celle, it's called. It's not far from Bergen-Belsen. And so the British officer says, I can't give you a pass yet, you have to go to Bergen-Belsen. We liberated Bergen-Belsen. So I went, he drove me with his jeep to the camp in Bergen-Belsen. So I met some friends from Auschwitz. They used to play in the orchestra. In October 1944, they liquidated the orchestra in Auschwitz, and they shipped them to Bergen-Belsen. So I met my friends. I had befriended me with Hilde, and Hilde was there with the 2 other girls, Carla and Sylvia, and I stayed with them a while. Then I figured I don't want to go to Palestine. They were Zionists, and girls went to Palestine. I said, I'm not going with you because I want to find my sister. So in the meantime, The British officer said, if you don't go with the girls to Palestine and stay here till they leave, then we give you a pass, you can go home to your hometown. So I wanted to go home where I was born. So finally they gave me a pass, and I took the trains. There was no trains running. So I took the train, the coal train, the freight trains. It took me 30 years to talk about it. The reason I do it now.